Code of Ordinances, Chapter 81 concerning animals, adding the Ditmer Watts Nature Trail to the list of town properties where leash restraints are required for dogs. Does anyone want to make a comment on that? Okay.
Should there not be someone to brief on that proposed
Yeah.
ordinance?
Dean is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dean's
okay.
done it, yeah.
Do we want to go into the hearing? Want me to open?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet? Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, is it,
Public hearing.
yeah, motion go into public hearing.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we go into proposed ordinance,
Okay.
1905-14A, Chapter 81, specifically 81.02C.
Okay, second?
Second that.
All right, made by Bob, second by John, all in favor?
Aye. Do we
All right.
want to go into the hearing?
Go ahead, Dean.
Want me to open?
Okay. Currently, the town has a leash law
Yeah, well,
that covers
Yeah, okay, then.
Morris Park out here, and that's the only area that we have listed as leash law. In the, over the period of probably the last month and a half, we've had two incidences, one at Ditmer Watt Trails and one at Morris Park, where a dog off leash hurt a pedestrian and another one hurt a dog. And so it brought back to the forefront of our minds of, should we cover more area in the town? It was brought to the Parks and Rec Board at their last meeting that the suggestion was to cover all town-owned property that is inside the city limits of the town as a leash law. I'm sorry? So covering the property that is inside the town limits, that is owned by the town. Parks and Rec Board voted a 3-2 to approve that amendment to the regs. Part of the discussion was that we invite people from other towns, other cities to come here, and we want them to use our trails, we want them to use our parks, we want them to use our city, and our obligation is to protect them,
the town limits.
not as much their animal as we are the humans.
Parks and Rec
So
voted
that's kind of
a
the
3-2
reason this is up today
approve
for
that amendment to the regs.
vote from the board to see
Dean,
how you feel about it on this.
what were some of the dissenting views on the Parks and Rec Board?
There were some of them that felt like that dogs should be able to run loose on some of the trails. They didn't like the leash law part of it. They just liked having their dogs run loose. And there was a few that voiced that in the meeting that were there. They voted against the proposal, and then there was a couple that was against it in emails later on after that that was not present at the Parks and Rec Board. So, but in the vote for the Parks and Rec Board, it passed a 3-2.
Okay.
I would probably mention that the intent is to address the properties inside of the town only. Currently, the town owns properties outside of the town of Lake Lure.
Right.
That would be Buffalo Creek Park and the 1,300-acre Weed Patch Mountain Tract, and then also the tract across the river, which is the one that we are developing plans to develop as a campground. That's located in Chimney Rock Village. So this ordinance would not apply to those properties outside of our jurisdiction.
Right. Just what's inside the town limits.
So then what we would have, we'd have some parks where we have a leash law and some where folks could let their dogs run if they wanted to,
Correct.
or have a leash, either way.
Correct. And that'd be Buffalo Creek Park and Weed Patch Mountain.
Okay.
And Boys Camp Road.
Yes, as he just said, the Boys Camp
Oh,
Road
yeah.
Campground
Because that's not.
area.
My question is for William. What kind of liability do we have without it? Or how does it protect us by having it from the incidents that occurred?
It's more of a police power ordinance. I don't think you are at great risk of liability for having an area that's leash-free. I mean, you see that a lot, more and more in towns, and Black Mountain has a leash-free area. So I think all the cases situations I've been involved in or known about, liabilities with the owner. Of course, there'd be some misdemeanor liability as well if it's a leash required area, so.
Because that came up during the Parks and Rec meeting, that was a topic, one of the topics of the discussion, was the liability. Is the town, or could the town be held liable for not having the leash law and an incident occurs? And does having the leash law mitigate our liability? So that was part of that discussion.
There probably is some level of mitigation for having it, but should it prove to be a problem as it plays out at these other places, there may be a duty to take further action. But I'm not aware of any situations where a town's been liable for not passing an ordinance requiring a leash. There may be some. I'm not aware of any in North Carolina.
And the one incident in Morris Park occurred even in spite of the leash law that currently exists.
Correct.
Chief, do you have any comment?
We've had two, like you said, the two incidents.
Sean, could you go to the mic, please? Sorry.
Basically what Dean's already said, we've had the two incidents, and it just happened to come up recently, and I think that's what sparked this conversation. It's on the board's discretion, whichever way they want to go.
Okay, so you're kind of neutral on it? Okay.
And that's always my concern, is here you had a leash law and one on a leash and it still attacks somebody. It's more of personal management of your animal as it is whether it's on a leash or not. But I just always worry that here we go, immediate reaction to one action that, it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction sometimes. And I'm like anybody else, my dogs stay on a leash, but that's my choice. But if I see a dog approaching, I think that's a risk to that dog, then I put it up in my arms and protect it. But I'm always concerned that we have one incident or an incident happens and now we gotta make a law for it. And I want less regulations, not more regulations, so
Well,
it bothers me a little bit.
If you recall the original leash law, I opposed that, and when I spoke to that over in Rumbling Ball, when we had that meeting, that council meeting there, I mentioned the knee-jerk reaction, and I felt like it was one at that point in time, and just simply asked, I wasn't on council, but asked the council to defer any decision for 90 days so it could be properly vetted and discussed. So it's not a knee-jerk reaction. And I was just wondering, I wanted to mention that, and maybe what some of the others feel about that possibility.
Well, we've got, if I understand correctly, there were a couple of members that weren't at the Parks and Rec meeting that
Right.
wanted to weigh in on it. Maybe we ought to give it another month anyway and let them have another Parks and Rec meeting and with all of their membership and see if they come back with the same recommendation. What do y'all think about that?
Well,
No problem tabling it.
I would also suggest as a part of that, besides Parks and Rec, because maybe we need to ask William to check into it a little more if he feels like it's necessary. I know if somebody gets hurt and there's a lawsuit, they'll sue everybody that's around,
Right.
and that would include the town. Whether or not they would be, successful in a judgment or something, I don't know, but
That's likely to happen with or without a leash law.
Exactly.
If we could, I guess there's some potential for liability if you have a leash law and you
Liability,
don't-
maybe not ultimate liability, but being named in a suit.
They do that for entertainment.
Oh,
Yeah, I think, Ms. Diorio do you have a comment?
Everybody-
Just a quick comment. I'm Maria Diorio, 145 Neighborly Drive. As a dog owner, we keep our dog on his leash. My husband frequents Ditmer Watts Trail all the time, daily, actually. Dogs that are loose have actually approached our dog, who's not very well socialized, and that is an issue, not to the dog that's it's not to our dog that's the issue, it's the loose dog will be injured by our dog who will feel threatened. We actually spoke to Dr. Lisa Shoemate of the Lake Lure Animal Clinic, and she's been on the trail and she advocated, we just saw her Thursday, and she advocated, and she said she'd be willing to talk to anybody about a leash law. She advocated it. The problem is enforcement, and all the more reason for a dog park as another alternative eventually, and I know that the council is thinking about that. But
Well,
that's all.
you know, it's like a lot of ordinances. The law abiding will follow them, and the ones that don't care, don't care.
Yeah.
And they're
it's an
gonna ignore
awareness.
them no matter what.
Yeah, and it's an awareness.
Yeah.
It's an awareness thing, because a dog running loose could easily knock over a child too, very easily.
So, yeah,
anyone.
it does boil down to enforcement, even if there is a leash law. If it's not properly enforced and regularly enforced, it doesn't mean a lot, so,
Probably one of the most controversial subjects that,
yeah.
that can be,
Most evenly
I would
split,
say.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, I deal with it in the insurance business all the time, even with homeowners, with aggressive dogs. You will get your policy canceled if you have one, if there's an incident. So it's probably one of the most controversial and hard to make the right decision, issues that there is.
Well,
Okay,
we are
we're in
still in,
agreement to-
we're still in the public hearing, of course, and we
Yeah.
can't make a decision here. We have to wait till the new business thing to.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, is there a motion to move out of public hearing?
If there's no further comment, public comment, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, made by Bob, seconded by John, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right. We've got a presentation by the Hickory Nut Gorge Chamber.
They had it up there. Well, they're in that spot.
This yours? No, that's yours. I got one. Everybody had one. That's yours too. This trash is yours.
So maybe I'll talk sideways. Technology, it's great when it works, but when it doesn't, it's a challenge, right?
No extra pressure.
No. So, yeah, we didn't print this out, so
We need.
maybe they'll get it up during the time, but I can start. I had some opening remarks. I want to thank everyone for allowing the chamber to come today to present. For those who haven't met me or don't know me, I'm Laura Doster. I'm your executive director of the Chamber of Hickory Nut Gorge. For those who do know me, know that I'm very results-driven, goal-setting, and I really hoped that I could come in here today with a letter of intent or an offer letter for our little strip center down the street. But I think 3 months isn't quite enough time to make that happen. So anyway, on a more serious note, tonight we wanted to have the opportunity to come before you. Since joining coming part of the chamber, I have kind of heard over and over, what does the chamber do? I've heard that The town would love a presentation for you to hear kind of our efforts. So we have been working on communication, we have been working on branding, and getting word out there of what we're doing. We haven't had a leader for a while, and so I've kind of walked into that. We are still kind of transitioning, but wanted to come to you today to kind of introduce the chamber, who's on the team, kind of the efforts that we're doing, how we're organized, and let's see if this is coming up. What efforts we've made, kind of where we're going. That's the goal today. And then what we're not here to do today, and I want to make sure I say this, is we're not here today to kind of discuss budgets or financial request, because there is a budget meeting scheduled for the 23rd, and that's where we have the opportunity to kind of take a deep dive, have more interactive conversation, and dig into the details a lot more. There's a lot of material here, and I know 15 minutes is kind of what I've allotted. But is there any other kind of subject or part of this that you would like for me to add on here, if I have time at the end of 15 minutes, that I can bring up, a subject matter or a topic? We're good? All right.
Good job.
So before I kind of start, what I want to do is introduce the team, but before I do that, I wanted to talk about where we've come from and give you just a little bit of history. Valerie and I realized today that it probably would be worthwhile to create a little history blob on our website. But, we started in the Welcome Center, and then the TDA decided to kind of make that for the whole county. And so the chamber moved out, and there was conversation about possibly dissolving the chamber. And so we're really grateful that there's a group of people that didn't. There were a lot of discussions and the agreement that we really do need a chamber here. We need a chamber that represents this unique community, that drives economic progress for all of us. There are some amazing organizations here that needed that umbrella, which is how the chamber should function. And so that umbrella, is us today. We want to be that go-to for all of the organizations, continue to work collaboratively to accomplish as much as we can as a community here in the Gorge. And so there were a lot of volunteer hours that went into that have helped us be where we are today. And we're very grateful for that. I'm hoping at our annual meeting in September that I can identify those folks and kind of honor them, because there was a lot of effort and volunteering hours that went in. You guys probably know many of them that I kind of meet here and there, and I hear the stories. So I'm new to the area, 2 years to the area, and since February in the position. So again, I'm learning as well, but I have that open door policy. So anytime you want to come talk to me, I'm there. So I'm going to call out the members, the staff, and the board, and I'd like them to stand as I call them out so that everyone can kind of see who the chamber is, and you can put the faces with the names. So our staff consists of Valerie Hoffman. She handles our marketing and public relations. I think you guys are familiar with Valerie. You want to stand? I want you to remain standing. Is Alyssa here? I don't know if Alyssa made it. Alyssa Dixon, she handles our administration. She does all of our billing and membership duties and runs the chamber master for us. I don't know if Karen Yarborough made it. She is our financial advisor. She handles our books every month. On our executive board is Patrick Bryant. I don't think an introduction is necessary. He's our president. Bob Keith is our vice president. Bill Ashman is our secretary. James Kane is our interim treasurer. He's with Rumbling Bald. He's not able to make it tonight. On our board of directors is Crystal Morrison of Morrison Photography. Thomas Keever, I don't know if Tom made it. He, of course, is with Lake Lure Class Academy. Jennifer Duncan is the branch manager at Carolina Trust. I don't think she has small children. Terry Coutu, she's CEO of her own company, Terrick Enterprises. She's our most recent board member that was approved yesterday. April Sheik, she's owners of April's Boutique. Mary Yeager Gale, she was she made it, yay, Mary. She was at Asheville till 5 o'clock meeting. Laura Creedy, your own, Laura's on the board of directors. And Howard Redman, he's the owner of Cedar Creek. So this is kind of the team that supports the chamber. I'm sure you're familiar with the faces, but I really appreciate all of you and thank you for being here tonight. So the chamber does have a mission statement. I'm going to go through it. I'm not going to read it. There's a lot in here that I'm not going to read. I'm going to kind of touch on the high points. You know, basically our mission statement is about promoting, protecting, building, and being a catalyst, promoting economic progress, quality of life, protecting the natural integrity of our community and beautiful surroundings that we have, and to be a catalyst for activities and opportunities for visitors, residents, and businesses, as well as building a strong sense of community. And I think that's been done really well with the town and our communities that we represent, Girton and Bat Cave and Bills Creek. Thank you very much for the cooperation so far in helping us fulfill our mission. The way we fulfill it, obviously, is through our services. There's a handout on the table over here. One of the biggest questions I was getting after I came on board and talking to people is, well, what does the chamber do for me? What does it mean to be a member of the chamber? And so we did pull together. There's a lot of things we've done. We haven't done a great job at communicating that. And so we pulled this together about what our services are. I'm not going to read through all of these. You can read through them later. But basically, you know, it's building that sense of community. We are a huge promoter of our nonprofits. We have quite a few. I think we have like 35 nonprofit organizations that are members. And so we do a lot of promoting to drive business their way and to support them. We do consistent networking opportunities. I think you know, ribbon cuttings, recharge. We've actually, for the first time, got our recharges filled till November, I believe. So we're really excited about that. And then we have a massive volunteer. This community has a number that was given to me within 2 weeks was 800 volunteers. There's 1,300 residences here. So we're a very volunteer-driven community, right? And so all those volunteers are kind of spread all over the place. Everyone who leads a different event has their own group. So we're creating a master database of volunteers and what they like to do, so that quickly anyone in this community, that's how we can support, you know, anyone under the umbrella of the chamber to support their event with volunteers. Economic progress, that's a hot topic for all of us. And there are things in here that we're participating in, and I will drive a little deeper into that as we get into how we're set up and what the different committees are doing. But we do drive 4,000 people here during the Dirty Dancing event. That's a huge one that we all are aware of. And then I think when we talk about shoulder events and activities, a big one is the gala. You know, those are local residents. It's a very successful event that happens, you know, in December. We do have a voice. We do participate. When we get to the community committee slide, you'll see that most of the members of the board, of the chamber, of our staff, we serve on lots of different committees and government representation and making sure that we understand what's going on. We do want to see that get larger. We do want to see us to, you know, start attending legislature meetings in Raleigh, understand what's going on kind of on a political agenda. We just haven't had that bandwidth, but that is a goal, just so that you know. And I would assume that's something we work together on, because I imagine that's a goal of yours as well. Let's see if there's anything else. So delivery of our services is done through how we're organized. So these are our committees that currently support the chamber. I will say we're looking for folks who want to get more involved. So if there's a committee here that you see that kind of appeals to you, there are several that we just got chair people. So that's something that I kind of personally drove after coming on board, because the chamber can't function unless we've got our chair people in place and driving, you know, efforts. So we have planning and economic development, which is Bob Keith as the chairperson of that. Marketing is Mary Yeager Gale with Valerie Hoffman. Events is Patrick Bryant. Co-chairing is Laura Creegee. We're trying to have her follow him around as much as possible, and so that we all kind of understand what these events take. They're very labor-driven, right? Membership Services is our latest member, Terry Coutu, and Jennifer Duncan with the bank has agreed to be on that committee with her. Community Development is another new one that Crystal Morrison has stepped up to want to be a part of. And as we know, community development goes hand in hand with economic development a lot. And then our executive committee is typically what your executive committee is. Any questions about that? No? So I'm going to dive into a little bit of the different committees. Economic development, basically, this kind of shows you what we've been doing. We've got a task force that we put together for the YMCA that would kind of revitalize Russ Pitt's approach to the chamber and said, let's go back down and talk to him. Kevin was going to attend, wasn't able to at that time. But we did put a task force together. We did a huge presentation to the regional vice president, and we had all key players at the table. It was very impressive. Ingalls was there, Outreach was there, Kevin was there, Shannon was there. We had the mayor of Chimney Rock there, Peter Leary. So it was, the school was there. So it was really impressive, and we all really kind of liked that we shared what was going on. And the statistics that we shared with each other. From that meeting, we did determine that a community center is something that we want to focus on. Part of that, though, is we're hoping that we can get the Y here, because that's a great brand, obviously, to do a community center with. It may not start with bricks and mortar, but that's kind of where we are with the task force. There was a meeting supposedly last 2 weeks ago, and of course, with some of the things going on, we canceled that meeting, and we'll make sure we're pursuing that. Bob has been involved with the technical consortium. We all know one of the biggest things we need is good cell and Wi-Fi. So we're working on that. The Affinity Assisted Living Facility is green-lighted. It's a go. I think there's just some technicalities with water and some other things you probably are more familiar with than I am. But we've provided statistics. Shannon and Kevin then provided some. They came back last week. We gave them some more updated census information. So we've got the green light. I think they're just kind of working through how that's gonna, and when that groundbreaking will happen. So we're excited about that. So those are kind of the things that we've been working on. Of course, the chamber, when it started, some of their great accomplishments is they brought the bank here. They brought the medical facility. They assisted. We all worked together, right? So they assisted in bringing the bank here, the medical facility, Ingalls. So there's great success there, and we hope that continues. We want that to continue, and that's the desire. The things in the box you can kind of read later, but those are, I think, that's where pretty much I've had meetings with Kevin and Shannon and Laura, and again with Kevin and George and Bob. What does everyone want the chamber to do? So we're looking at the Arnett Muldrow, what's left on that could still be executed. We're looking at asset management, Shannon provided me with a whole breakdown, and we know that Charlie did a asset inventory of the town. So it's really kind of continuing with those meetings. Let's put a strong plan in place with SMART goals. What are the specifics and how can we execute them? So because we're in transition, as well as the town is right now, that is still a hot topic for us and a goal. So we're not quite there yet, but it's in place and happening. Any questions around that? No? These are some ideas. You can look at them later, and you guys have probably heard about them, but these are sort of the rumblings that I've heard and from getting out and meeting folks. Obviously, shoulder season activities is a big one. Everyone would love to see us somehow drive more business and continue through the winter months. January through March has kind of been proposed to us. These are just some of the ideas that we can come up with. There are services that people want, dry cleaner, car wash, laundromat, things to that effect. And then activities. What do we do when it rains here? We have to leave town. So is there something that we can put in place that, so I think there's plenty of projects from an economic development perspective for the chamber to partner with the town, partner with the other organizations and businesses in the gorge. So marketing's a big one. There's several pages on marketing, and so I'm going to just kind of go through the highlights. I think the biggest thing, when we're talking about economic development, obviously you've got to be able to, you want to make sure you're communicating, and you've got a marketing plan, you're doing PR work. So I do think that's where we've done, a really good job. We are the steward of the brand. I think that was from the Arnett Muldrow study, is that the chamber kind of is the steward of holding the brand, the logos, and making sure we all have that consistent appearance in the community when people come through. We do have a newsletter that we send out, 6,000 subscribers, guys. And that's caught my eye because I'm like, who are those folks? We don't have that many in the community here and certainly don't have that many members. So I'd like to see the demographics on that. So we'll work on that, and I'm happy to share that with you guys if it's of any interest. We consistently promote the chamber. We have the online calendar. That was a goal they put in place last year to create the online go-to calendar for the whole gorge. So you don't even have to be a member of the chamber. You can go into the calendar and add events. It comes to us for approval, and there you are. So that we're kind of representing everyone in the gorge on a one-stop shop. So we are promoting that. We need some banners. We need to do a little bit better job, but it's getting a lot of hits. It is our biggest growth factor right now on social media. That's hickorynutgorgeevents.com, just so you know. Our chamber website is a great platform for our members. They have the ability to go in, put themselves on a map. They can link themselves to things. So we're realizing that a lot of them don't necessarily know how to go use it. They can post jobs on it. Then it goes out to our website automatically. So we're going to hold some education sessions on that to teach them how to go in and do that so that it's more effective for them. Let's see, do I have that one? Another big marketing thing that I think is important to you guys is we are getting a lot of calls from media to come to the area. They want to do 2-page coverages on it. So we do have like Columbia Metro Magazine coming June 7th and 8th. And of course, we have to provide accommodations, lodgings, and food is what they do. So that's me on the phone calling folks and asking, can you put these guys up for the weekend? And then putting an itinerary together. So I want to make sure that I'm partnering with all of the critical folks to make sure everyone's getting exposure, because these are great opportunities for us to get PR. I think the other big thing, and I'll show it on the next slide, we are constantly selling the chamber. We are pushing people here. We're shedding a light on the gorge, and it's through events and tagging. So I'm going to kind of go to the next slide. There's some of the things that we do to promote the gorge, and I know you've seen them and maybe didn't realize they were coming from the chamber, but it's not just any particular business. It's a whole series of events and why people should come here and how we drive that. Give you a minute to kind of look through that. So we have a lot of events. As many of you know, the chamber, has a few signature, but we do participate in some form or fashion, whether through sponsoring, co-sponsoring, volunteering, helping set up whatever needs to be done. There's lots of big events. Polar Plunge. You guys are going to be doing the fireworks this year. We're excited about supporting you on that. Sail on the Trail just was one of the biggest, so we think that's going to continue to get bigger and bigger. But I think it's definitely, and I know that there's been focus with the town on events lately, and was a passion of Kevin's, so we want to make sure we're partnering with that. I know there's been talk about, and we'll get to that in the community slide, but kind of a community alliance, and the calendar is a big one, so that we're not duplicating efforts, we're not duplicating events, that we're kind of spreading things out and working together. So that's kind of exciting too. Any questions? No. So membership is another committee that has recently gotten some leadership. And so Terry Coutu has already brought some proposals, so those are kind of down, kind of in the works. We all know we need some educational series that drives business to the members, but also brings in special speakers for educational purposes for the community. Our volunteer program, that database is pretty big. We want to create more benefits. So there's some ideas around coupon books, where the businesses get a discount. And we're going to be doing some surveys. We want to know what the folks want. We want to know what the members want, what the investors want. So we'll keep them short and sweet. I think we're trying to keep them under 10 questions so that we can get some decent response, so that we're really focusing and targeting, what is going to benefit and what people are interested in supporting. We have 8 levels of investment. I think you guys are all pretty familiar with them. I will tell you that our largest, 48% of our membership population is Gorge, which is $200, and those are businesses. So a lot of our small mom and pop businesses that are supporting us. And the other big one that's like 40% is our contributors, which are our residences. So our membership, obviously, we're going to do some campaigns and some work on that front. But you'll see when we get to the financials, we're event heavy is kind of where most of our income comes from. And I know that makes sense probably to you guys. Community development, I think the big purpose in this slide is just to let you know what we are involved in. From a board's perspective, everyone here, we are on the TDA, we're on the CDA, we're on the LLCA. Rutherford County Chamber of Commerce, I have a meeting tomorrow with Clark Poole, be my first time meeting him, and how can we, be collaborative and work together with him. We serve on the Board of Outreach, Hickory Nut Gorge Foundation, Rutherford County Government. So there's a lot of things that we make sure that we're involved in and keeping our fingers on the pulse. As far as what's in the works, that's kind of new. This is new, and these were just some identified areas that we thought, a charitable, we like the idea of doing something charitable for the children. And Spartanburg does this, their Chamber of Commerce does this. I heard through a friend, and I just thought it was a great idea where you donate stuffed animals and we take them to the police department and the fire stations. And when they're in emergency and children are involved, they have something to give them to make them feel kind of good. It's an easy thing to do. But there'll be more to come on that. Crystal brought up a community training, discussion for small businesses that don't have the resources to bring in subject matter experts to, for shooters, when you have an active shooter, what should these small businesses do? And then that brings a bigger conversation. How do we work together as a community if that was to happen to all of us instead of waiting until it happens? Let's be proactive. So that's just one subject, but it's really more about hot topics. And lastly is our financials. And I think the biggest point to this is just for you to see, and I know in the budget meeting we'll drill down a little more in this. We are an event-heavy chamber. That's a labor-intensive effort. It is my personal goal as the executive director to get us where we have more revenue streamlines coming in, that, we can grow and not just kind of stay the same. Membership obviously is there, and that helps us as well. And I think there's some efforts that we can make on that front too. But, our expenses, we're pretty bare bones. We're running with, including me, 3 part-time folks, but really full-time roles, just part-time budget finances. So just kind of wanted to point that out. We're doing a lot of work and a lot of good. So in closing, again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. Is that telling me it's time to stop? So that was good timing. So anyway, I do want to thank you. I do want to, express how important it is to the chamber to work with the town, to bring business here, to put a plan together, to work collaboratively. It's really critical and vital to us, and I'm looking forward to it. It's very exciting to me to be in this position. I thoroughly feel like I've come home to what I was meant to do, and I hope you'll feel the same. I think working together is what makes this, an amazing place to live, work, play, and visit. And so I think because we've got some plans, I felt it was appropriate. A quote from General Patton that I'll leave you with. He says, "A good plan violently executed right now, today, is far better than a perfect plan executed next week." So I think it's important for us to keep the momentum going, act swiftly in the areas that we know we need to prioritize and act swiftly. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. David.
Okay. We're ready for our liaison reports. I've done mine. Bob?
Sure. I'll report the Utilities Board meeting that we had on May 7th. The first discussion was on the low-pressure system. The board spoke about the terms of the loans coming up. Specifically, the loans that we're applying for have different terms. Example would be the sewer plant would be a 20-year term. The length of the collection and piping would be a 30-year term. So we're trying to break these into packets with understanding for our loan sources. We want the longest length of term that we can for these projects, and so we're trying to get those packages done correctly. Next will be the discussion was a requirement needed to establish the ordinances that require the town for their revenue, also for the customer base, what's going to be required in those ordinances to meet the state standards and requirements for these loans. So this is another team effort by the Utilities Board to make a recommendation to council and start working with town staff on these ordinances, so they'll be in place when the time comes and they're needed. Next was a draft letter that they're putting together regarding the lift stations. These are pumps and collection systems. What they're doing is they've put together a letter with a bunch of questions for different communities that already have these systems. They've gone down and they've issued, I believe, about 9 questions on such as the quality of the product, maintenance of the product, would they recommend it again, and what issues that they're having. So the board's putting this out to different communities. Some of these communities may have 800 pump stations, some as large as 3,000 or 4,000. So it's a great technique to figure out which system's working best and will work for us the best in the long run. Next was a final discussion on the upcoming Council and Utility Board workshop. That workshop, as Shannon reported, was on May 8th, and working with their for ideas and questions that we've put to the engineer, which the engineers, there's a meeting again tomorrow morning, going over the final questions needed to keep this project going forward, what we need from engineering and what the engineering staff needs from council and the Utilities Board on those critical questions. So that's my report.
Okay, John?
I'll do the ABC Board first. The ABC Board meets monthly. Things are kind of settling down from an employee standpoint there. That's not always an easy thing, but we're getting some good people in place there. There's some experience in retail and stuff like that. No big specials this month I can tell you about, so I guess we have to pass on that one. That is, I tell you this, if you watch the papers, if you listen to the news, the privatization of the ABC system is big. It's big in the legislature. There's bills being proposed, and so you can Google that, or you can read the newspaper or whatever. But that's something that obviously we don't control. But there's a lot of things happening in that arena. So I encourage you to keep up with that if you can, if that's something you have an interest in. Lake Advisory Board, got lots of things going on there. We focusing on a lot of no-wake education and what no-wake is, and trying to keep kayakers out of the middle of the lake, endangering themselves and others. Dean has the trash boom in the river, kind of doing some trial runs with that, which I think is making a great progress, catching the trash coming down the river before it gets into the lake. If you've not seen it sometime, you want to go back, walk the Marsh Park Trail, and you can see that in place. We're working on lake levels, trying to keep lake levels at as consistent as we can, where people don't have trouble getting off their boat lifts like I do a lot of times. And that's one of the things we're talking about tonight, that we're going to, we actually had a surveyor come in, it's been nine or 10 months ago, and shoot some new levels, and we found out that we have not been accurate on between our two systems and how that's done. We're trying to get all that regulated. The Lake Advisory Board, our meeting this month was a week ago yesterday, and we actually did a tour of the hydro system and all the plant underneath the dam, and a lot of folks on the LAB had not been down there. My opinion is you will appreciate it way, way, way more if you've been there, and maybe someday we'll be able to start doing some public tours for folks to go down there and see that, and really see what 1928 technology does for us today. It's absolutely fascinating what they did back then that is making us $100,000 a month in power generation. So hopefully that's something that we can, we're working on the boat model, trying to determine what, how many boats can we have? How many more boats can we have? We're looking at increasing the size of the marina, so we're looking at that. We're looking for volunteers to help in collecting boating hours this season. We want people that will take their own personal boats even. We're looking for vacation rental homes that we can do that with and have an hour meter and monitor your usage for the year. That will help us in being fair and accurate in that. So a lot of things going on at LAB, but a lot of good positive things. And we have a great LAB committee and people that are involved. And so they're working hard to make the lake be the best it can for all of us as citizens.
Good. Thank you, John. Steve?
Thank you. There was not a Board of Adjustment meeting or a Lake Structure Appeals Board meeting for the month of April. There will be a Lake Structure Appeals Board meeting May the 28th. 28th at 1:30 here in this facility. The Parks and Rec Board met on May the 2nd. One of the highlights was Andy Bell made a presentation that deals with ways to monetize assets and facilities through naming rights, sponsorships, honoraria, and other means. The board, it was a well-received presentation, and it is something that they will continue to talk about. If you have any thoughts or ideas, suggestions along those lines that you'd like to present to any of the board members, they do meet the first Thursday of every month at 1:30, again in this facility. And one thing that brought that on was the current Boys Camp Road property, and talking about a name for it, how it should be named, what are some options, things of that nature. So they will be discussing that along the way. Mr. Garrett Murphy, as the new Parks and Recreation Coordinator, has firmly fallen out of the frying pan and into the fire. He is feeling the heat. He came in, he was very overloaded, had lots to talk about, but he is doing some good work, and I think we're going to see some really great progress out of that position. We have lost our AmeriCorps representative. He has taken another job. So Dana Bradley, who is the supervisor for that, will be attending our meetings for the next 2 or 3 months until they hire someone new. Lots of trees down in Ditmer Watts have been cleaned up, and great thanks to Melody Potter and Carl and their crew, and under the supervision of Dean and Garrett. Mr. Watts went out there all by himself there one day and really sawed up a whole bunch of stuff with his chainsaw. Is that correct, Ed? Yeah, and so he deserves a special thanks on that. Mr. Massey reported that there was an incredible turnout for the Ring in the Spring event at the Flowering Bridge. And you may know that the 4 panels, 2 sides each, the big kiosk is now complete and done a magnificent job. And they have now also put in, or will be putting in, a volunteer appreciation fountain in the middle of the gazebo. The golf course had 490 rounds of golf and 34 rounds of foot golf. As you walk through our parks and you see the beauty and the landscaping, be sure to thank Melody Potter and Carl Landrum. They do a super job. Landrum, correct? I got that right. Okay. Dean left, but Maureen, or Mo, correct me if I'm incorrect on this, was that the Boys Camp property, based on the engineering designs and all the area needed for spoils pits, or thought to be needed for spoils pits, has been reduced, and the area that will be used for campground area has been enlarged, based on those plans.
That is correct, that's what Dean.
Right, okay. Mo also mentioned at the board that she's going to be attending Rutherford Art Guild in attempts to bring more arts and culture to the Lake Carroll area. Ed Dittmer reported on the wonderful Geese Peace program that is an annual event. So far this year, they found 67 eggs, and compared to 50 from last year. 64 of those have been oiled. So the humane program to limit the amount of geese in the area. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. No one has signed up for public comment. Is there anyone who has anything to tell us? Okay, I'll move on to the consent agenda. We moved item C down to new business, and that is now item D under new business. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no unfinished business. Our new business is to consider the two new ordinances on which we had the public hearings earlier. The first one is is ordinance 1905-14, ordinance amending the Town of Lake Lure's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 40, Streets and Sidewalks, specifically 40.21, formerly entitled House Moving, proposed to be retitled Heavy and Oversized Loads, Moving of Houses of Modular Homes. Is there a motion to adopt that?
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance item number 1905-14, specifically Chapter 40, Streets and Sidewalks, specifically 40.21.
Okay, the second?
I second that with, as amended during the public hearing.
Okay, all right. You good with that? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, the second new business, item B, is a proposed ordinance 1905-14A, which has to do with animals. I think we agreed to put that off till a month anyway.
I'll make a motion that we put that off until next month's council meeting.
Okay.
And have input from Parks.
When, revised or input from the Parks and Recreation Board.
I second that with one amendment to the text that is presented, 81.02C. All the discussion in the hearing said that the ordinance pertained to town property within the city limits, but nowhere in the ordinance does it say within the city limits. It just says town-owned parcels. So that third line after, or second line after town-owned parcels in town limits, just add in town limits.
That should be in there, I agree. Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, consider redefining full pond from 990.5 to mean sea level. Dean's gone. Who's gonna?
I'll go ahead and
Shannon, you gonna
start
do
the
that?
discussion. And I've asked a few of the departments to be here so that we understand what the effect or impact will be. A concise, short way to describe this is that in 1927, when they took the elevation 990, they used a certain way of calculating that elevation. And when you calculate the very same elevation today, what was 990 is really 990.5, which is 990 feet and 6 inches above sea level. So we've made a discovery on the dam in relation to a specific reference point that has been used for years. was about, how many months ago, Brad? 8 or 9 months ago. We had Don McIntyre go out and shoot the elevation, and lo and behold, it was 6 inches different than what we had always believed or what we'd always had talked about. So as far as a practical application, what this will allow us to do is run the lake level at a place to where it should be, we shouldn't have difficulty getting boats in and out. Practical application, David, as far as running the generators, if you want to speak to that, what will this basically allow us to do?
Basically what this will do is, we figure in inches rather than elevation down there because it's so much simpler when you're out in the middle of a storm. But 24 inches below the boat that everybody always talks about on the dam will be what was thought for years was 990, which is actually 990.5. So if y'all change that, if 24 inches below that boat will be 990.5, which will be considered full pond. We have been pulling down to like 36 inches, from 24 to 36, that foot range, without having to come before the board or the mayor or the town manager or whatever. But I have noticed in the last probably 6 to 8 months that when we get beyond like 33 inches, 34, 35, 36, the last 3 inches of that foot, more people seem to have problems getting their boats in and out of their lifts and their boathouses and stuff like that. So we could stop our generating during normal weather, not when it's raining and storming and all of that. But we could stop our generating and pulling to try to stay at the 33 or above, unless they're calling for thunderstorms and hurricanes and all of that stuff, which we always come to y'all anyway, So that's what I've told Shannon I think makes sense is if y'all want to change from the 990 to 990.5 as being full pond, and us back off a few inches on what we're pulling down to, and try it for a while and see if that solves the problem, because I see the complaints that I'm hearing about are coming when we're down 34, 35, 36 inches and beyond, So if we can stay above that, I'm hoping that will solve the problems and everybody will be able to get their boats in and out without a problem. It cuts off a little bit of the area that we generate in. I want everybody to understand that.
Well, if we raise the level, we're not really cutting off that area, are we?
Well,
If we're gonna keep more water in the lake.
yes and no. Me and Shannon had this conversation earlier today. If you set elevation 990.5 as full pond, and we're allowed to pull from that point, the very instant you turn that generator on, you're getting away from that 990. You're pulling below it. So few and far between, I'm just being honest, will you be at dead on full pond unless I am instructed that, hey, there's a boat show this weekend or 4th of July or whatever, we want this lake dead full pond, before this weekend, then we're gonna do everything within our power to put it there.
Yeah.
But once you turn that generator on or you open those floodgates up, you're getting away from that full pond quickly.
Well, I understand.
And so,
Here's a concern, and I just saw this Sunday.
okay,
We were out on the boat Sunday afternoon in the beautiful day that was supposed to rain all day and turned out to be incredible.
right,
But we came this way. I actually was coming to get some gas.
right,
And there was a pontoon, not a tour boat,
right,
it was probably a 22-foot pontoon boat. And as he started into the bay,
right,
he was churning up mud.
right,
A regular pontoon, not a tour boat.
right,
And he churned it all the way till he got to the buoy when he went to no wake.
right,
And so, we're still gonna have issues in that area. And, from my understanding, they finished dredging,
Yeah,
but we're still, and that's not even a loaded tour
right.
boat.
I understand.
So,
All we can do on our end is what level is set and you just tell us to follow. We'll do our best to do that.
you've been doing an incredible job
I
managing
appreciate
it.
that.
We have 3 shifts now.
Yes, we do.
And we should be able to do the best job we've ever done
Yes.
in managing that
Yes.
with the staff we've got and
I
with the
agree.
focus that's being put on it.
Yes. In my opinion, it's probably gonna be better than it has ever been as far as trying to hold a more accurate and level lake level, because we're here 24 hours a day, 5 days a week through the week. Now, on the weekend, it's rotated out, one guy's on call for the weekend, unless a hurricane or something like that's coming, but, at the end of the day, you know, this lake belongs to this community, and you're the representatives of that, and wherever that is set, we'll do our best to stay within it. I would not recommend coming above the 990.5 as being considered full pond, because the higher you come, the quicker you're gonna overtop them gates, if a bad situation did come.
And this action is not talking about going above it, it's talking about defining what full pond
Yes.
is.
That's right.
And from what I understand, there was no previous definition that we could ever find. We had that discussion before, in the email, and I think that's all this is doing, is defining full pond at
Right.
990.5,
Right.
which you said is where 24 inches below the boat.
Yes.
And I hope we're working to get a more technological, accurate measurement from
Well,
ice somewhere along the
I will
line.
let you know that town manager, Stephen, has decided that he's gonna get all of us,
A yardstick.
yardstick to put on our boathouse, so we'll be able to keep up with it at the house. Usually a boat, and we might even have a boat put in. Yeah, we'll have our own boat.
Man, that's all right. But when I come off council, we can transfer that, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, it'll be transferable.
I don't see any problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
really
it's a
the
good
true
idea
990.
to, I was saying, I think it's a good idea to, try it for a month and see, cause, you know, time after time, we've had unintended consequences, and that way, if we haven't nailed it down, we would maybe, put it in.
It's not set in stone.
Yeah.
You know, it's something we can adjust as we need to.
Yeah, we found through, and we had this discussion in October 2015 with Donnie during the Lodge on Lake Lure hearings. Same thing, people have problems at 989 and a half.
Right.
No doubt.
Right.
They're gonna have problems getting their boats out of the boathouses.
So, and if we can stay at that 33 point or above, I think that will help tremendously with it. Because when, I'm seeing and hearing complaints once we get beyond that, and that's 24 to 36 is a range that Donnie and them have worked off of, I think, for years. And so I don't know what has changed or what the difference of a foot is a foot.
I
Either way.
personally would like to see it stay between the 990.5 and 990 as
Right.
much as possible. Only that 6-inch range,
Right.
as
Well,
much
if we-
as possible.
If we get the small generator back, they'll be able to do that more.
Yeah, that's fine.
The lower, just understand that if we do that, if you cut that range down to 6 inches, that's all the generating you're gonna be able to do, and then that generator has to cut off. And so you won't see as one of you said earlier, $100,000 checks in a month.
Right.
I don't think they would be there.
Unless it rains.
Unless it rains constantly, then you could keep it going, so.
But you'll make up the difference, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll write you a check. If it ain't no good, I'll write you nothing. But
You heard that.
whichever way y'all decide to go, we'll do our best
We're
to stay
staying
with it.
managing it the way you've been managing it. It's just, now you'll be a few inches higher than what you have.
Yeah, give us an opportunity to try cutting off at 33 inches.
Right.
And let's see where it goes for a little while. If that stops the problems where people can get in and out, that's great, you know.
I don't think we need a motion. If that's the consensus, is to try this for a month and look at it again
Okay.
at the,
I think we're all
next
good with it.
meeting.
It's all in your hands.
Is, Dustin, is there anything you'd like to add from your perspective as far as storm management? How this may affect that? Sounds very positive from Dustin's perspective, too.
You want me to address what I addressed with you? I had two concerns when this was brought up to us. One was we're taking away 6 inches of play in our lake level that we're trying to maintain. In our worst storm in 2018, the lake was coming up 3/4 of an inch every 15 minutes. So that took a lot of leeway out of time for preparations and evacuations and stuff like that. But when the lake level reaches the 991 mark, the lake starts spilling over the floodgates right now anyways. And then that path is directed through the spillway that the lake currently uses. And then after consulting with Jonathan Pittman, he said that the floodgates would still be operational even with a little small amount of water overtopping the floodgates. And also with the extra staff, David's been able to manage the lake level almost spot on. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job. And you can really tell a difference in the amount of complaints that I receive and in the timeliness of the response with him having that extra staff there. They're able to make better preparations for these storms and such. So I don't feel that there's an issue with going to 990.5, just trial area.
I think one of the things that I just want to reemphasize is that we spoke with Schnabel, we held a conference call with Schnabel about water going over the top of the gates, and as long as it's managed appropriately and we can get to it fast enough, it's not a concern. Whereas before, we were under the impression that it was a concern. Based on the engineering analysis they've done, their knowledge of that dam, the way it's designed, those gates are perfectly capable of pushing through the water and basically rising and letting it pass through. So it alleviated a lot of concern and a lot of stress, just that one phone call.
And I want to make mention too, it's not our intention to let it ever get to that point. We just wanted to know that the dam would be able to function normally if it did happen. And if it starts spilling over the floodgates, we're not just releasing water out of one section of the dam, one buttress. It's going to be all three are getting topped at the same time. So that's going to...
It's a natural
Yeah,
adjustment.
yes.
And we're not, our intention, I'm sure, is not to go to the 991, is to hold it at 990.5 or less.
Exactly.
And that's under normal circumstances. Has nothing to do with what you do for
And
emergency management.
And I'm never aware of, at any time, that the lakes rose 6 inches without us being aware of it.
Right.
You know, I mean, if it fluctuates a fraction of an inch, we're alerted, you know.
So I feel like my job is to make sure you have all the information before you vote or not vote. Last is Brad. Brad, if you will, just talk to us a little bit about how did 990 become 990.5, and then how will this affect your department, if at all?
All about the vertical datum.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Here we go. So the folks with Mies and Mies in 1926, 25, when they drew these plans, they used a vertical datum that they derived locally through some engineering magic, however it is those guys do it. Comes to find out that they were really close to spot on. There was no vertical datum like right now. Most of your surveyors use what is called the NAVD 88, which is a national something vertical datum, which deals with spatially, horizontally, as well as vertically. The NAVD 29 was in place prior to that, and it was not even, the dam was built by that time, so we've never been under anything. So the Mies and Mies guys came up with 990. Turns out that's real close to right. NAVD 88 is calling it 990.46, which we've been referring to tonight as 990.5. So that's how they derived it, they got there. Turns out that through not only Don McIntyre, but a couple of the other surveyors, Don McIntyre was 1.2 inches off of what the big surveying company that did the dam analysis did. So we're real confident with these numbers right now. The one thing I would like to advise you of is, being your new lake structures guy, everywhere you see a tab is a reference in these regulations to 990 as a lake average, or 990 as an average pond depth, or 990 as full pond. It vacillates all through here. You know, especially it's very reassuring to hear Shannon say Shannon, David mentioned that for many years, Donnie was using 24 as the standard. So a lot of the stuff that has been built at that level is not going to be, there's no consequence to doing what we're doing, because we'll be right back to where we were. And some of the stuff that's been since then is even better off. So, but if we do change it and keep it some sort of level of permanence, we probably want to think about doing a text amendment and getting this stuff up to speed. But I just give that for your information. Did I answer your question?
Yep, no, you did. We just want to make sure all the departments vet this change if we.
Which document is that, Stephen
Lake
asked?
structures?
This lake structures, yes, sir. Yeah. Any other questions?
I don't think Dean probably would have added too much more than to what has already been
No,
said.
he and I had a brief discussion, but I basically told him what I was going to say, and he was in concurrence, so I think we're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
with it? Just-
Okay, our last item then will be our budget, consider budget amendment 247 to complete 2 custom repair projects. You wanted that pulled out of consent, so.
Yeah, I had a question on it. Basically, what we're doing is, because the cost of moving the propane tank, which had a $25,000 budget, was not needed, the tank was moved, and the general fund money, I believe, was used to take care of that. It was only $1,800 to $2,000 or something. And so now we want to move this $25,000. We want to change the title on the account line to Tanner Gate Repairs, and is to replace the 2 custom cables and an installation of a motor on the gate. That anticipated cost is $15,500. That leaves a balance of $9,500, according to the amendment I see, moves to fund balance. Sam, my question was, which fund? Is that general fund or the fund for that line 533?
It's the hydroelectric. It's the hydroelectric fund. It's not the general.
So it won't stay on that line?
No, it moves to the fund balance.
Okay. With experience in almost all repairs dealing with such antiquated equipment and situations at that dam, I seldom see anything come out to the estimated cost. It usually ends up more one way or another. So I don't want to see that $9,500 go away. I would like for that $9,500 to stay in that account until that job is done, to where it is available if needed over the $15,500. Is that doable?
Yes, it'll work itself out that way eventually.
So that's what it would the way it would normally transpire.
Okay, I just want to make sure that money's there. Then I'm okay with that budget amendment, with that caveat there, stipulation.
I've got one food for thought while we're discussing it, is we need a shed that they can work on under those storms when they're raising these gates. That's about what we figured the cost would be to do that, didn't we? You and I, David?
What?
But we need coverage when they go over there to open the gates in the rain. They're standing in the rain and storms. No cover, a flashlight in hand. I'd like to see us, if this money's available, to go ahead and get the shed over those 3 gates so they don't have to stand out there in blinding rain with a flashlight down that chain. They can put the shed up. David, I have to talk the method, bring it to council on approval for colors or or whoever needs to approve it, but if we have that money left, we need to get that protection for these guys in bad weather. We can put lighting for them and fix them right up, but
Well,
David, can you do that with $9,500?
I think that would be close.
and
Okay.
we're coming up on budget anyway, so.
But
A building like he is talking about.
Yeah, that's probably something for our budget, since we're about to do that anyway.
if you got it left over, it'd be less of a new budget. It's
Yeah,
the
well,
old-
you're gonna have to, get a price on it or come up with your own estimate or whatever, but yeah, I think it's a good idea, but would,
Can you get an estimate before that meeting on the 23rd with the department heads?
I can try very hard.
I just remind you, remember visibility and not blocking sight line for cars coming down Buffalo Shoals and not being able to see cars coming across the dam
Yeah, this is the lowest.
with the shed.
Yeah, you're looking at low profile, less than 8 feet, probably about 8 feet.
yeah.
So we've got to have something to protect them.
So I'll make a motion, we approve budget amendment 247 with that understanding that that 9,500 would still be available in that fund.
I'll second.
Is this 246 and 247? No, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line, 247, yeah, okay, all right. Motion second, all in favor? Aye.
And I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Whoa, fast.
Well, somebody else might want
They'll have to get over it, that's my
it. Too
job.
quick, okay, second? I'll second, I'll second, okay, all in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.